Hi, my name is Angel. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to episode 2 of reading different horror subgenres. As you can tell by the title of this video, we are doing body horror this month. So before we get into the books that I will be reading in this video, let's learn a little bit more about what body horror is and what some of the common characteristics are. Body horror is a subgenre of horror that focuses primarily on grotesque transformation or mutilation of the human body. The term body horror came into use in the 80s to describe an emerging subgenre within horror films, but the concept originally has roots back in the 1800s. One early work of body horror is Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. It is said that the success of Gothic literature, in combination with sci-fi, is thought to be the origin for body horror within literature. However, there are some specifics when it comes to the genre. The term body horror is not simply a term used to describe just any type of violence against the body. For example, things like a gunshot wound or stab wound are not classified as body horror as there's no aspect of grotesque transformation. Some common themes within body horror are viruses, infection, mutilation, and disfigurement. Another prominent aspect of body horror is the idea of the human body being sacred to oneself and the horrors incited when that sacredness is threatened or destroyed. I found this user's comment on Reddit to be very helpful, particularly the end quote. "The unity of the body must be dissolved by being split apart, subsumed into a greater whole, internally invaded, or otherwise transformed such that body and not body is blurred." Overall, body horror is a subgenre that can overlap with many other genres and subgenres. There are many different characteristics, so if you are interested in learning more, I will leave some articles linked in the description. So, now that we've learned a little bit more about body horror, let's go ahead and talk about the books that I will be reading for this video. I have decided for each one of these, I want to choose at least one book that is like a classic or an older title within the subgenre so that I can kind of compare like modern examples to some more classic examples and different elements within the subgenre. So the first classic title we have is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I have read this before. I read it in high school. I'm sure a lot of us did, but I'm really excited to read it again. So we're here for that. Then the other one that I have that is more of a classic is The Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka. Would you believe that for the longest time I thought this man's name was Frank? I thought his name was Frank Kafka. Anyways, this has been on my TBR for a really long time. I know it's about a guy that turns into a bug, and I don't know much else other than that, but I'm really excited that I'm finally getting to it and knocking it off of my TBR. The next one that I'm going to be reading for this is The Cipher by Kath Koja. I don't know how to pronounce this name. I don't know if it's Kathy or Kath. But this, I've heard a lot of weird things about. I don't know what this is. When a strange hole materializes in a storage room, would-be poet Nicholas and his feral lover Nakota allow their curiosity to lead them into the depths of terror. This one I saw repeated many times when I was looking up different body horror books, so I'm really excited for that. Then I have House of Hollow by Crystal Sutherland. Don't know much about it, but it's body horror, clearly. And then Wilder Girls by Rory Power. These two have been not officially on my TBR, but I've kind of like had my eye on them because I've seen so many people read them and love them over the years. I had no clue that either of them were body horror, so I'm really excited to get to read those for this video. And then the last one, I wanted to do a short story collection, and what better book to choose than Books of Blood by Clive Barker. This is volume 1. I just wanted to start with volume 1. I didn't want to get a little bit crazy on myself, but I have never read a Clive Barker book. I know Clive Barker is a very popular, very well-known author, especially within the horror community, and now that Books of Blood has an adaptation on Hulu, I think it would be really fun to read this and then possibly watch that later on. Plus, I feel like short stories are just a good way to really get to know a certain type of genre because you're just reading a lot of little things that have different themes from that genre. So with that being said, we have, what is that, 6 books that I will be reading in this video. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. So I decided to start off this video with The Metamorphosis. Not only is it a classic like we talked about, but it's also been on my TBR for a really, really long time. So I was really excited to finally be able to get through it. It is very, very short as well, so it's definitely like a one sitting type of story, and I just had this feeling that I was going to enjoy it, and I really, really did. So if you guys don't know what The Metamorphosis is about, it's basically about this man who wakes up one day and he has found that he has transformed into a bug, into a beetle somehow, and he doesn't know how. And so now he's just trying to like live his little beetle life, but it's also about the people in his life and his family and the way that they treat him. And there were a lot of really, really interesting talking points in here, a lot of good things to think on, and a lot of commentary. Like, he is kind of the sole provider for his family, his 2 parents and his sister, and they all live together, and he is the only one that works, and so he brings home money for the whole family. So when he gets transformed into this bug and he can no longer go to work, it's this very interesting thing where he finds out that his father has actually been taking a lot of the money that he brings home and kind of stockpiling it, so they have like this big sum of money saved up that they can now live off of, at least temporarily. It's also really interesting too that they claim that like they're so poor and he has to work and pay off the debts for them, but then they still have like staff working for them, like a maid and like a cook. So that was really interesting as well. I was really, really loving the way that this story is written as well. It starts off very comical, very funny. He wakes up, finds out he's a bug, and he's like, how am I gonna go to work? Like, that's too real. When you wake up as a bug and your first thought is, oh my god, how am I gonna go to work? How am I gonna get money? He also, at one point, right before he's like, oh, I should go to work, he says to himself, what if I just go back to sleep for a little while and forget all this foolishness? And I relate. Like, you wake up and you're a bug, can't be bothered, go back to sleep. So it has some comical undertones to it, especially at first, but then it gets sad. Like, this book made me really, really sad at the end, especially like the way that his family treats him and just this whole idea of him, kind of being isolated and no longer really cared for or loved because he is now different from what he was. And I thought it was all really, really interesting, very, very sad towards the end. But obviously the body horror in this one is that he gets transformed into a bug. It's a transformation with his body and he has to get used to this new body. But it was really, really interesting. I can definitely see why it is so like widely read and why it is a classic. And I really enjoyed it. Very, very easy 5 stars for me. I'm really glad that I finally read this. Then today, so I read The Metamorphosis last night before bed. Today I started Wilder Girls by Rory Power. I read it on break at work and I got to page 70 and I was really, really sad when my break ended and I had to stop the book because I did not want to stop reading. I just got to such an interesting part. This takes place in, I don't think it's the future, but it's like a world in which there has been this pandemic, I guess. There's this mysterious disease that they refer to as tox, T-O-X, but the girls that we are following go to this school that is like on this island, so it's like a boarding school, and so they're kind of stuck there because they can't really go back to the mainland. Nobody can come to their rescue because they are still trying to figure out what this thing is and stay quarantined and stay isolated, and this disease really changes your body in strange ways. They have very, very abnormal things happening to their body, and that has been really interesting. That's obviously the body horror aspect of it all. It has taken lives as well, and so there has been a lot of interesting aspects like that. But basically the girls have it set up that they have like different shifts. So they have like people that watch the door, and then they have somebody who like the gun shift where they are posted up with guns to shoot like the animals, because the animals are now affected by this thing and have killed other girls, and just kind of stay on watch. And then we also have the boat shift, which is when their boat of supplies comes in, they have this designated team of girls that go out beyond the gate, and they have to go through the woods, which is very dangerous, and go to the boat and retrieve their supplies and bring it back and ration it out to everybody. So our main character, her name is Hetty, I believe. She has just gotten assigned to the boat shift. One of the other girls decided they didn't want to do it anymore, so she had just gotten to that, and she has just gone out for her first little supply run and has discovered something that has been hidden from the rest of the girls, and it was very shocking, and it was just a really, really good part. Like, I am so upset that I had to stop at that part because it just got so interesting. I'm really enjoying this one so far. It is going so well, and I can't wait to get back into it. This is YA, and it is gay, I believe, so we love that. So far, this experience is off to a really good start. So I'm gonna keep working on Wilder Girls, and I'll let you guys know when I have another update. I'm getting ready to go to bed now, but I just wanted to update you guys. I just made it to chapter 14, which is page 211. So I'm a little bit over the halfway mark so far, and this book is really good. Like, I'm absolutely eating it up, flying through it, and like, I don't know how to explain it, but it's like every chapter just makes me want to keep reading, because it kind of ends with not even really a cliffhanger or a reveal, but it's just like, I'm so invested in the story and the things that these girls are uncovering that I just want to keep reading. I hate when it happens that I have to put it down. Like right now I have to go to bed because I have to get up to go to work tomorrow. But if I had a choice, I would just stay up all night and finish this book because it's so good. We are just following the girls. We have Hetty, Reese, and Byatt. I think that's how you pronounce her name. And Hetty, like I told you guys, she's a part of the like boat shift now, but Byatt has just had a really intense flare-up of this disease, and because it's so common, if it's like a normal flare-up, they don't really do much about it, but the ones that are really bad will go up to the infirmary, which is like the top floor in the school building that they're in, and a lot of the girls don't make it back from the infirmary. Like, that's like a last resort type of place if it's really bad. So Byatt has just had a flare-up and was sent to the infirmary, and Hetty is, you know, really cares for her and really loves her and sneaks into the infirmary to check on her, just see if she's okay, and she finds that it's empty. So now her and Reese are working together to find out what happened to her. And it's very interesting because it's sort of like a love triangle. I'm not entirely sure. I don't know if the characters really know what their feelings are, but Reese, I think, has feelings for Hetty, and Hetty is kind of conflicted. It seems like she kind of has some feelings for Reese, but it feels like she really has a lot of care and love for Byatt. So it's very interesting because she is risking her life to go and search for Byatt, but Reese is risking her life in order to be there for Hetty. So I feel like that's sort of like a love triangle type of situation. But the three of them are all very close and they care for each other. So that's been interesting to follow. Overall, I'm just really loving it. The body horror is definitely there. Like I said, with these different flare-ups, each girl is affected differently by this disease, so you can never really tell what's going to happen next to somebody or how badly it's going to affect them from one person to the next. So that's really interesting, and we are getting a lot of things kind of uncovered or like exposed. Not everything is as it seems, and we are learning a lot more. We are mainly following Hetty's point of view, but we are also getting some chapters from Byatt, which I think is really interesting to see where she is and the things that she is learning and the things that are being done to her is all very interesting. It's definitely the type of horror that I really enjoy, and I'm really, like I said, invested in the story. I just want to keep reading, but I have to go to bed, but like I need to know what happened in this book. So I have, I think, just over 150 pages left, so I will most likely end up finishing it tomorrow. So I may or may not give you guys an update before the end, but either way, I will see you. When I tell you guys that after I finished that clip last night and I went to bed, I was falling asleep and I was just thinking about this book and I was like, I'm so excited. I get to finish this book tomorrow. And then I woke up in the morning and my first thought was, oh my God, I get to finish my book today. And I was just like, getting ready for work. Like, I don't want to go to work. I want to sit down. There's nothing more that I want to do right now than to sit down and just finish this book. But I had to make money, so I had to go to work. And I read another, how many pages did I read on break? About 80 pages or so. So now I'm up to page 297. So I've got about 60 pages until the end. And I'm so excited. The fact that I am like itching to read this book any second of the day that I get tells me that this feels like a 5-star, but I'm a little bit nervous because the main complaint I see about this book and like bad ratings for this book is that the ending is kind of unsatisfactory or you don't get a lot of answers. And for me, I can kind of go either way when it comes to endings like that. Sometimes in books, I really love endings that do that, and sometimes I really dislike it, but I feel like a lot of that is influenced by how I'm feeling about the book already. So since I'm already loving it, I feel like despite the ending, I still could love it and give it a 5-star, but we'll just have to see how it goes. I'm just really loving the atmosphere of this. Another thing that I saw when I was reading a lot of bad reviews for this is that a lot of people were saying like nothing happens or they were bored, which I'm a little bit confused at because I feel like a lot has been happening, but I don't know. That's just me, and that is the joy of reading, is that you could feel one way about a book and somebody else can feel entirely different about the same book, and that's what makes it so fun. There has definitely been some body horror and some kind of gory stuff. There was one scene specifically on this page that I marked 244, which I can't, talk about because it might spoil something, but if you have read this book or if you own the book, page 244, I was reading that while I was on break at work and I was like, I don't know, I wanted to physically react, but I couldn't because I was around other people, and that's the hard thing about reading in the break room at work. But it's going really well so far. I am loving the way that the story has gone. There have been things that have happened or just kind of like different plot points that I've kind of not really predicted, but I just had a feeling that the story would take that direction, but it was a direction that I really liked and was kind of hoping the story would go, so that's definitely not a bad thing, but we just got to go and see how the end is going to be. Like I said, I have about 60 pages left, so I'm going to go on the treadmill and finish this book. While I'm doing that, I got the library book on my Kindle so that it's easier to read on the treadmill, but I'm going to finish that, and you guys will see me very soon, hopefully with some good news. And I also just found out that there is a short story that is kind of like a prequel to this, or just about the girls' lives before this book. So I went ahead and got that because the author actually has it up for free. You can download it. So I think I'm definitely going to read that after this one, but I got to finish this, see how it ends first. It's very intense. Like I said, I feel like every time that I have to stop and put this book down is when I get to a really intense or just exciting part, and that makes it even harder to put it down. And that's another reason why those reviews are confusing me, where they're saying like they were bored or they thought nothing was happening. I'm like, so much is happening and I don't want to stop reading this book. So I finished Wilder Girls last night as promised. This is definitely getting a 5-star from me. I do understand, though, why people say they have issues with the ending. I see a lot of people saying that the end kind of makes it feel as if there is going to be a sequel to the book, although there has not really been any sequel ever spoken about. So I do agree with that. I feel like the ending is kind of abrupt, but it's still getting a 5-star because I really loved the entirety of the story. And like I said, this was one of those books where when I wasn't reading it, I was thinking about it, and when I was reading it, I didn't ever want to stop and put it down. And to me, that really like stands out as a 5-star. Like, this is a book that I'm going to think about for a while after this. Like, I'm still thinking about it. I have moved on and started reading other things, but I'm still thinking about this book. I know this gets compared a lot to Lord of the Flies. I think that was kind of part of the marketing for this book, is that it was marketed as a feminist Lord of the Flies. And I don't know if I fully agree with that. And I also don't know if I agree with, like, just because all the characters are female does not mean that it's a feminist book, you know? Like I don't know. But to me, this book feels more similar to The Troop by Nick Cutter, in that we have like this group of young children, or younger children, I guess, and they are on this island with limited like adult counterparts, I guess you could say, and they are plagued by this mysterious disease that nobody really fully understands. And I feel like there are definitely a lot of parallels that could be made between things that happen in The Troop and then things that happen in this. It's definitely not as brutal. This is a YA book, but it still has like that body horror and some like brutal elements to it. But I really liked, I don't know, just the way the story went, the way that nature is kind of included into this disease that plagues them. And another thing is, I saw a lot of people leaving bad reviews because they say like they never explain what this like disease is, what the tox is, but it was explained in the book. So I don't know. Like, yeah, there's a lot more depth that could have been given to it, but you do get answers as to kind of what it is and like how it started. And I thought that was all really fascinating. Just the whole atmosphere and the vibe and the writing of this, I really loved. I enjoyed the characters as well, and like I said, this is definitely one that is going to stand out and be prominent in my mind for quite a while to come, and I think that definitely justifies it being a 5-star. So I'm really glad that we kicked this video off with 2 5 stars. So I will come back and let you guys know when I have an update on my next read. So today I started 2 new books. First of all, I started Books of Blood by Clive Barker. As I said, this is just volume 1. So the first story was called The Book of Blood, and I'm not going to rate that one because it really just felt more of like an introduction to the collection, like talking about what the Books of Blood are and kind of how they originated, and it just felt like an introduction to the other stories. So the next story was The Midnight Meat Train, which I actually have seen the movie. I gave the story 4 stars. It's really interesting because in the first story, The Book of Blood, I really didn't enjoy the writing style or just the way that was written. But then The Midnight Meat Train, like, the way it was written was so captivating, and I really enjoyed it. If you guys don't know what that story is about, we are introduced to this man who lives in New York City, and he takes the subway to and from work, and there has just been some like weird things happening. Like, the police have found these bodies on the subway. These murders have occurred late at night, and the bodies were found kind of strung up and like the blood drained, and they were cut in a very expert way. So they're looking for like an experienced, like seasoned killer, and he is called like the Butcher. And then we get introduced to the Butcher himself, waking up in the evening, getting ready to like go out onto the subway at night and get ready for his night of killing. And it's really interesting because he's like, oh, I'm getting too old for this, like we need a replacement for me. So it's just kind of weird. And then back to the main guy that we were following, he is at work and he's working late, and he doesn't leave until like just after 11. So you can kind of put the pieces together and realize that he is gonna meet this Butcher on his subway ride home. And I'll just leave it there because I don't want to spoil anything. But I did give it 4 stars because I feel like there are some things that could have been expanded on further. It is a short story though, so I can't like hate on it for being short, but I just feel like, I don't know, there were some things at the end that I had questions about, and I was like, I wish that this got explored more. But overall, it was really good. I'm really excited to read the next story and see how that one goes. And the other book that I started was The Cipher. I have gotten to about page 70, which is chapter 4. So this is a book that I believe was first published in 1991, and we have these 2 people that we're primarily following. We have Nicholas, who is like the main perspective, the person kind of telling the story. It's kind of like a stream of consciousness, like first person writing style. And then the other person is Nakota, I think that's how you pronounce it. And they are like lovers, but so far I absolutely hate her. I think Nakota is so annoying. She's made some decisions as well that I, don't really agree with, but aside from that, because I'm not, it's a horror book, I'm not expecting to agree with everything that the characters do, but she's just really irritating. Like, I don't like her, and it really is frustrating to read about her and listen. Like, I can't stand it. I don't know, I'm just so irritated at her character. I don't know how to explain it. The writing style as well, I kind of hate. Like, it's really just not for me. I feel like, I don't know, I'm just not enjoying it that much right now. I'm kind of bored, but the little like horror elements that we do get do have my interest. I totally like got sidetracked and didn't finish explaining what this book is about. So these two characters, they find this like black hole in the floor of this storage room, and weird things start to happen. They start to do different experiments with this black hole, and they have this really strange like pull towards it. It kind of reminds me of A House at the Bottom of the Lake by Josh Mallerman, where these two teens find this house at the bottom of the lake and they just have this weird draw to it, and no matter how hard they try, they just can't stay away from it. And that's kind of how these characters are with this hole. They keep wanting to go back to it over and over and over again, even though nothing good has really come out of that so far. So it's really interesting. The body horror is definitely there. Some of the experiments that they did at the very beginning were with like some animals. They had this jar of bugs that they put there, and they put it next to the hole, and the bugs started to like change, and like they had like a roach that grew spider legs, or some of the bugs grew an extra set of wings or an extra head. So it was really, really interesting. And obviously, the story I think is going to progress to these changes occurring to the people getting involved with this whole. So I am interested in like the body horror aspect of it, but the writing I'm not enjoying. The characters I'm not really enjoying either. So we'll see where it goes. I'm going to try to push through, hope that I can push through to the end, but right now it's just like not a book that I want to pick up and read just because the way that it's written. Another note that I will say, like I said, this was published in 1991, and to me this is a 90s book. I felt the same way when I read Exquisite Corpse, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just like, this is a 90s book. Like, it is very much the 90s. I don't know how to explain it, but I guess that's like, there's some talent there with the author, because it's like the setting and the atmosphere of the story that they are trying to get across is definitely coming across, because like I can tell, like, even before I knew that this was published in the 90s, like, I knew it was published in the 90s just from reading it. And like I said, Exquisite Corpse kind of gave me that same vibe. I don't know, like the 90s grunge vibe. I guess those authors just pulled it off really, really well. So that's where I am right now with these two books. Like I said, I'm definitely, I think, more inclined to pick this one up, or just into it more than I am into the cipher right now. Like, the story has me intrigued, the horror aspects of it has me intrigued, but like the writing is just kind of a struggle for me. Also, there have been some like, just like, not grammatical, but just like editorial errors. I feel like there have been a couple of times where there has been like a period, like a punctuation mark in the middle of a sentence, or like in the middle of a word, and I'm like, I don't know if that was intentional to add to like the weird vibe of the book, or like I just don't understand how that would have been overlooked through the editing process, especially because this is like republished as of 2020, this edition. So I don't know what is going on with that, but it's kind of like throwing me off. I am now on page 145, which is chapter 8 of the cipher, and I'm happy to say that it's definitely like been a more pleasant read. like it has picked up as far as story goes. I'm a little bit more used to the writing style as well, so it's making it a little bit easier to read. Some interesting things have happened. Back at the beginning, when they were still doing these experiments with this hole, which they call the fun hole, they decided to put a camcorder into it. So they like attached a camcorder to this like piece of string or whatever and put it down and recorded this video. And when they went back and watched it, for Nicholas, it showed one thing, but for Nakota, it shows like a different thing. And she says that every time she watches it, it shows something different. But for Nicholas, it always stays the same. And he has the much like stronger bond to this hole. I don't know how to explain it, but now we have gotten to a point in the story where there are a lot of other characters that have been introduced, different people that have been kind of brought in and shown this video, and now they are intrigued with the hole, but none of them really has like the connection to it that Nicholas does. Like strange things only happen when Nicholas is there, and at the beginning Nicholas actually put his hand into the hole, so that is where a lot of the body horror is coming in, because his hand is just like changing and just this gross, disgusting, weeping wound, and the descriptions of it are gag worthy. Like it's really, really nasty. But that has me really, really intrigued, and he's just kind of like, it's almost like a descent into madness with Nicholas and his obsession with this hole, and just some crazy stuff has gone down since then. So it's definitely picking up for me, like story-wise. I'm more invested in it now, but I just don't know where it's gonna go. It is 216 pages, so I have this little chunk left to read, and I'm very curious just how the story is gonna escalate. I feel like it's gonna be a really rapid escalation or just a lot of crazy things happening at the end, and I'm really curious to see how it's gonna end for all of these characters that are now involved and just what's going to happen with that. It's really, really interesting. I love a good descent into madness story, so I just wanted to report that it is going well. So I'm going to finish this sometime today, and I'll let you guys know my final update. I don't know what I just read. This book was so weird, and I'm just not sure how I feel about it. I think I'm gonna give it 3 stars. This is a book where I feel like if somebody hates it, I understand, and if you love it, I understand, but for me, it was like, I didn't go either way. I'm just kind of landing right in the middle. Like, I can see the good things about it, but I don't know, I still feel like I had trouble with the writing style, and that really made me disconnect from the story and just kind of not be as invested in it as I wanted to be. I'm just not sure what to say about this book. Would I recommend it? Yes, if it sounds like something that you would be interested in, but just know that it's like weird. Like, it's definitely very unique. I will give it that. I've never read a book like this. The concept is very unique. A lot of the things that happen is very, very unique. But it was weird, and I'm not sure what to make of it in the end. This was, like I said, a descent into madness story, like an obsession story with this weird whole body horror, body transformation, just a lot of weird things going on, and it definitely ends in a weird way, but also in a way that you kind of expect, but then I'm also like, I don't know if I fully understand the ending of this book. I really just don't know what to say about this, except that it was a very unique experience. I'm giving it 3 stars. I'm going to move on. I don't know. I don't know. I wish I could recommend this to certain people, but I don't know how I would go about recommending this book. Maybe go and read some other reviews by people who know how to talk about things a lot better than I do, and make up your mind from there. But it's just know that it's an experience. One like probably no other book you've read before. I'm gonna put this down. I need to give my brain a break tonight. And then I'm going to start probably House of Hollow next. So I will see you guys at some point. Like I said, I need to take a break after that book because like I don't even know what I just read. Hi, I started House of Hollow today and I got to chapter 6, which is page 58 before I had to stop. And once again, this is starting out to be one of those books that when I have to stop reading it, I'm really, really sad. Like, I just want to keep reading, but I had to stop and do some things. But now we're back, and I'm hoping to read some more after this little update. So before we get into it, let's just talk about what the book is about. First of all, we have these 3 sisters, the Hollow sisters, Gray, Vivi, and Iris. And then Iris is the one that we're reading from her perspective, and she is the youngest of the sisters. And something happened to them when they were all very, very young that they can't really remember, but now they all have like this scar on their neck, and then they also have like different features, like their eyes and their hair changed color after this thing, and it's just kind of been this big mystery. Nobody really knows what has happened to these girls. So Iris is in high school now. Like I said, she is the youngest. Her 2 older sisters, Gray and Vivi, both dropped out of high school and kind of like left home very early. I think one was 17 and the other was 15. And now they are both kind of in the like celebrity world, sort of. Vivi is in a band and they are like kind of well known. It doesn't seem like they're very, very popular, but they do have like a dedicated following. And then Gray is the like really famous one. She is a supermodel, has a very large following, lives like this glamorous supermodel life that you would expect, or so it seems from her Instagram. But those are the sisters that we have so far. And Vivi's band was coming into town to play, so she invites Iris out, obviously, and says like Gray is flying in and she's gonna be there as well. So the 2 of them go, she plays in her band or whatever, and Iris watches, but Gray never shows up, which is very strange. They say like if she says she's gonna do something, she is going to do it. So now she's just missing. They've tried to go around and talk to some people that she knew, go to her apartment, and just try to track her down, but they can't get in contact with her and they can't find her. So that is where we are so far in the story. The writing really is holding my attention. Like, it's doing such a great job at holding my attention. The characters, I am like completely enamored with the characters. I don't even know why. I just think that they're all so interesting, and then also the mystery of like what happened when they were younger is something that is very, very intriguing to me, and I'm really excited to keep reading and find out more. And I'm sure that is where like the body horror aspects are going to come in. There is also this interesting thing with like smell in this book, like scents. Everything has a scent, and a lot of the scents are not good. They're like smelling like rot or decaying things, which is really, really interesting. Like, there is an aspect where Gray, you know, being the supermodel, she came out with a perfume that is supposed to be like her signature scent, and it's supposed to be all like floral and beautiful smelling, and Iris, anytime she smells it, she just smells like this rot and decay, and she doesn't understand how everybody else wears this perfume and buys this perfume and seemingly like doesn't have any complaints about the smell. So that's something interesting as well. Obviously, it's going to be connected to whatever happened to them when they were kids, and now they have this strange figure. They can't find their one sister, but then they have this strange figure following them or showing up a lot, and we're not sure if it's a real person or if it's like figment of their imagination or like a ghost or what it is, but that's another element that we're following in the story so far. Just overall, I am like super invested in the story, even for being less than 60 pages in, so I feel like that's a really, really good sign. I am hoping to just kind of sit down and work on reading this evening and try to finish it. It's less than 300 pages, and with my interest in it being so high, I feel like that's gonna make it a quick and easy read. So I'm gonna keep working on this, let you guys know how it goes, and that's all I have to say for now. I am officially over the 200 page mark in House of Hollow. I'm on page 205, which is chapter 17. So I've got just a little under 90 pages until the end. The book is 292 pages. So I'm making very, very quick progress. I'm absolutely devouring this book, and I'm still very, very intrigued and interested in the story of it all. Things are definitely picking up, like it's getting a lot more suspenseful, a lot of things are being revealed, and I'm really loving the horror elements of it and the like kind of fantasy magical elements to it as well. So if we take a good look at the cover, this is what the body horror is in the book. A lot of things with flowers and bugs and wounds and things inside of the body of the three sisters, and I think that is absolutely fascinating. I really love when nature is like incorporated into horror, and that is definitely the vibe with this. There is some like weird kind of occult sort of things going on, like a lot of talk about witches and like demonic spirits and ancient runes and like things like that, which I think is really, really fascinating. A lot of talk about like liminal spaces and sort of like portals or doorways. I'm trying not to give away too much here, but it's all really, really interesting, and I'm enjoying all of those elements very, very much. They still are being followed by this figure. One thing I will say is I feel like the descriptions are sort of lacking the longer that we go on through the book. It's kind of like repeated language. I know in the last clip I talked about a lot of scents being described in here, and that is still happening. Everything has a scent to it, but most of those scents are just described as being the scent of decay. And at first I was like, oh wow, that's so like gross, that's so nasty, but now it's like that's the only word that's being used to describe it, and I kind of wish that there were more descriptor words used for not only that but for some other things. Like this figure that they have following them, he is really only described as like the same way over and over again every time they see him, and I wish that the language used was just changed up a little bit just to kind of add to that factor, because at the beginning, like, it's so interesting first time you're reading about all this stuff, but then when the same descriptions are used over and over again, it kind of loses some of the, I don't know, the horror elements, like the creepiness, the unsettlingness. That's not a word, but you know what I mean. Like, I just wish that there were more different phrases and words used to describe things in this book, but I'm still fully invested. I really love the bond that the sisters have. We also have some side characters that are really fun. Tyler, who was Gray's like celebrity supermodel boyfriend, he's like really funny, and it's just very interesting to have him in the story because he, you know, is not a part of this world that the girls are in, so all this crazy stuff is happening with them, and he's like, what is going on? And it's just like, it's really funny to have him be involved as well, but it's also really sweet because he really does care for Gray a lot, and just, like I said, the bond between the sisters themselves is really, really heartwarming to read about. Another element that I'm really enjoying is the fact that whatever happened to these girls when they were younger has kind of influenced them, and now they have sort of supernatural abilities and different things that they can do, which is really interesting. And Iris, the sister that we are following, all her life she's always just wanted to be normal. She's kind of got this reputation for who she is, what happened to her when she was a child. Obviously, that is a big unsolved mystery that a lot of people are really, really interested in. You guys know how the internet is. Like, it's definitely something that a lot of people would talk about. There would definitely be YouTube videos and podcasts and Reddit forums about what happened to these girls, and I think that's really interesting. But, you know, Iris is just kind of not living in her sister's shadow, but like she can't exist and do her own thing without being the sister of the supermodel or the sister of this musician or this girl that something happened to her when she was younger. And I think that's really interesting, just the idea how she's just striving to be a normal girl but was not set up to have a normal life because of the things that have happened to her and the different things, different powers that she possesses. And I think that's all really, really interesting because she kind of has to come into that power and learn more about herself and just become a stronger individual. It's just all very, very interesting. Loving the characters, love the story, and I'm really excited to see where it goes at the end, how things wrap up, and yeah. some big event has just happened at the part that I stopped at, so I'm curious to see what happens after this, and I'm curious to see what the answers to a lot of these things are, and I hope we get satisfying answers. I hope it's not like super vague at the end, but we'll see. I'm gonna finish this now, and I will see you guys probably not tonight because it's getting late. I'm probably gonna finish this and go to bed, but I will see you probably tomorrow, and I'll give you guys my final update. I have good news. I finished House of Hollow and I'm giving it 5 stars, and this just feels so good because I am literally filming this video in the last week of March, and I did not have a single 5-star in March until I filmed this video, and then I got 3 of them right away, which is just so amazing. 3 out of 4 books that I've read so far for this video, I am giving 5 stars, and I love it so much. I don't know if you guys ever have points like that where you're just not rating anything that you read very high, and then you start to question, like, do I even like books? Do I even like reading? So this book, Delicious Little Dark Fairy Tale, was exactly what I needed to get me out of that mood and to be like, oh wait, I do love books. I do love reading. This just had so many things that were specifically like my favorite type of things. I don't know if this book will be for everybody. I always feel like weird when I come on and I'm like, oh, this book was so good, I'm giving it 5 stars, and then I get nervous when other people say that they're gonna read it and I'm like, oh, I hope you don't hate it. But this had a lot of things that I personally enjoy. Like I said, it was very much like a dark fairy tale vibe. There were a lot of magical elements to it, and like this whole unsolved mystery of what happened to them when they were kids. Just like dark, creepy mysteries involving things happening to children. That sounds like really weird, but like, you know, I don't know, like when you have a group of children and one of them dies mysteriously, or a group of children and one of them goes missing, just things like that I think is like so fascinating to me, and it just makes me really enjoy reading the book and like learning more about those things. So that is one of the aspects that I really loved. It got a little bit spooky towards the end, like not like scary. It is a YA book, but it still is dark and spooky. And there were a lot of quotes that I really like. There's one thing that I thought was really interesting. Towards the beginning, Gray was talking to Iris and she was like, oh yeah, I'm not scared of the dark because like there isn't like things in the dark. She said, I am the thing in the dark, and that really stood out to me because I remember being a kid, and when I was a kid I was scared of the dark, and my dad told me one time, he was like, I used to be afraid of the dark too until I stopped thinking about like what else could be in the dark and started thinking of myself as that thing in the dark. So that's like really doesn't affect the rating of the book, but I just thought it was interesting that it kept coming up throughout the book where she was like, I am the thing in the dark, and it just made me think of my dad every time I read it, and I thought that was really funny. I love the way that things wrapped up in the end. I loved the twists and the reveals and the explanation for everything that was happening. I thought it was so good. Like I said, it gets a little bit dark and a little bit creepy, but it's like the exact type of story that I like, and that is why this book is getting 5 stars. Like, I simply devoured it. I read it all in the span of a couple of hours because I was just that into it. I did not want to put this book down. I could not stop and go to bed until I finished this book, and I would definitely be thinking about it for a long time to come. I also wanted to update you guys and let you know that I am still reading Books of Blood, but I haven't been updating you guys on any of the stories because they're not really body horror, but I guess that's kind of what you get when you pick up a short story collection. This was recommended a lot. Like, it seemed like anybody that was like, oh, if you want to get into body horror at all, you have to read Clive Barker Books of Blood. So I don't know if it's maybe just because this is volume 1, maybe in some of the later volumes it goes more into like a body horror type of realm, but so far I've read 2 more stories since I last talked to you guys, and neither of them were body horror, but they were both good. The second story was called The Yattering and Jack, and that was like basically about this like demon thing. I don't know. I gave it 3.5 stars. I thought it was interesting, but it wasn't my favorite. It wasn't fully holding my attention. And then the next one that I read was Pig Blood Blues, which I ended up giving 4 stars. That one I thought was really, really good. I am really enjoying Clive Barker's writing style. I like how I didn't even tell you what the story was about. Pig Blood Blues, we are following this guy who is an ex-cop, and he gets this new job working at this like youth correctional facility type of thing for young boys, and he kind of takes a liking to one of the boys there who gets like bullied a lot and is just really scared, always is in fear of something happening to him. So he kind of takes him under his wing, and a lot of weird things start to happen there. And I really, really liked that story and where it went. So like I said, I give that one 4 stars. And I'm currently reading this one that is called Sex, Death, and Starshine. But yeah, they haven't really been like body horror, so that's why I haven't updated you guys on this. Anyway, that is my update for now. I will let you guys know when I finish Books of Blood and then when I start reading Frankenstein, which is the last book for this. So I really don't think any of the stories in here were body horror, but since I've already been talking to you guys about it, I might as well give you my final update. I am done with Books of Blood. My favorite story in this was Pig Blood Blues. I also really enjoyed The Midnight Meat Train, and overall I'm going to give the collection 3.5 stars, and I will go on to read more of the collection and the other volumes as well. Maybe there will be some more body horror in those, but regardless, I'm really glad that I finally read from Clive Barker. It's always nice to read for the first time from like a well-known author, especially in the horror space. It's always a good feeling, and I do like his writing. Definitely going to read more of his stuff. So that's that for Books of Blood. Tomorrow I will be starting my reread of Frankenstein, and I'm so excited. I just want to show you guys. Obviously, I know I've talked about it a million times. This edition is gorgeous. There's also the illustration on the inside, which I just think looks so cool. Anyway, I'll see you guys tomorrow when I start this. Well, friends, it is time for this video to come to an end. I did not do any updates while I was reading Frankenstein because it's Frankenstein. I didn't think you guys needed me to stop and explain the plot of the book to you. But I have finished it. I literally just finished it before starting this, and it went really, really great. Like I said, I have read this before back in high school, so it was nice to read it again as an adult and just for my own pleasure and rather than for an assignment. I still enjoyed it the first time, but it was definitely a lot more enjoyable, I feel like, this time around. Obviously, you know, the story is great, very impactful. The writing is beautiful. There are so many talking points or just like thinking points and different things brought up within the scenarios and the events that occur in this book, and it's just all very, very fascinating. I think if I were to give it a rating, I'd probably give it maybe 4.5 stars, because I can't lie, there was a little part like right before kind of halfway through where I was getting a little bit bored, but then we go into the creature or the monster's like perspective or him telling his story, and then it really picked back up for me. I think that's definitely the strongest part of the story, is hearing from his own words. Obviously, there's just so many good quotes from him, like especially this one on the back: "If I cannot inspire love, I will cause fear." Another quote from him that I liked, let me find it. It says here, "I asked, it is true, for greater treasures than a little food or rest. I required kindness and sympathy, but I did not believe myself unworthy of it." And also just like his whole monologue at the end, there are just so many good things said within there. You know, this book has been out for a very, very long time. It's a classic for a reason. It really helped to define like the horror genre, the mix between sci-fi and horror, and then also, as we talked about, you know, being a really early example of body horror. Obviously, the body horror within this book is this creation of this human-like creature. and I really enjoyed it, and I'm really glad that I read it again, and I'm really glad that it went well the second time around. I don't really feel like I have to say much more than that. Like I said, this book has been out for a very, very long time. We all know Frankenstein. There are so many discussions on every single little thing out there in the world, so I'm not going to go super in depth with it, but I did really enjoy it. And that brings us to an end of this video, which overall was very, very successful. We had 3 5-stars, 4.5 star, 3.5 star, and a 3-star, which is really, really good. Honestly, like I said, I hadn't had a 5-star this entire month until I started this video, so I'm very, very grateful for that. I hope you guys learned something about body horror. I know I definitely did. I enjoyed the body horror that I read, and I'm really, really happy. So if you guys have made it this far, you deserve to know next month's horror subgenre that I will be doing is psychological horror. So if you guys are interested in that, definitely stay tuned, and thank you so much for watching.